we have this picture in our heads. And I looked up Webster's definition, and it really gave that greasy kind of vibe. It's like, hey, this is all about sales. This is about the process of selling something to people who you feel like need it. And then the American Marketing Association took a little bit different than, like when you're part of an association, typically we like to inflate what we do. So their definition was like, this is the institution and the process and and it just really inflated this thing that's just like, hey, really what we're trying to do is let people know about what we do. That's kind of the essence of it. But there was a group called Sachs Marketing. It is that Sachs. And they had a cool definition. And this one was sort of dialed into behavioral health, but I think it applies for clinicians in general. There is the part of promoting services related to what you do. In this case, it was mental health. And then they talk about being able to connect the sellers with the buyers, but they added a little clause in here that I really liked, using strategies that respect the subject's sensitivity. And I think that speaks to the heart of a clinician, right? It speaks to the heart of somebody who's trying to provide care, but they're having to also sell care, right? We're not doing this as a charity. If we did, we'd be doing it at church. So moving off of that, I started gathering together kind of like the reasons that I've encountered for why clinicians succeed or don't succeed when it comes to marketing. Some of them, you kind of see the spectrum. Some of them just very aggressive with their marketing, right? And then some of them I don't know about. I really just, that's where like networking groups like this are really helpful because we get to know each other. And when I say I know a person, I actually do know that person. And if something goes sideways one way or the other, then we can actually connect and talk about it. But these were some of the things that were common. One was the stigma and the perception of marketing. With clinical services, it is kind of tough to market results. Like it's not like me saying, hey, if you park $1,000 with me, I can earn you 5% and you'll get the return on that, right? Because I can't say, hey, Anita came to me with a marital problem and she said Lance was a jerk. And in 3 days, we were able to have Anita say that Lance is the best thing that ever happened. We have like compliance violations there, we have privacy violations there, we have so even if I could market, what would I say? And then there are resource constraints. The amount of money that's allocated to marketing by clinical practices in general is very low. It's a low part of their budget. So part of this is, well, how do you value marketing? Because they're for-profit corporations, they place a lot of value on this. Because they're trying to they want not just to fill a niche, but they want people to know that they fill that niche. So however they can get in front of people to talk about what they do, they will spend the money until the value of that forum or that venue doesn't constitute the expense. Like, I don't get back what I put into it. Not sure where to start. This is kind of like, so I'm a car guy. So this is like the equivalent of walking into a messy garage and it's like, I don't even know where to start with this. I know what I want it to look like, but do I dig into the cabinets first or do I take the stuff off the shelves first? There's so many different ways you can go with marketing that can seem overwhelming. Well, what's the best bang for my buck? What's best for my specialty? What's best for my area? So on and so forth. And then a heavy reliance on word of mouth. Even in my coaching stuff, I struggle with this. I do rely on word of mouth, and I feel like I don't necessarily respect the power of hiring somebody onto market. And part of that's because I have a full-time job. I'm like, I can't take that much volume, so I'm not ready for it yet. But it is important to know, like, word of mouth is great, and it will get you credible leads, but not necessarily volume leads. So that's when I sit down with entrepreneurs, I'm like, okay, well, what are you really after? Are you after volume or are you after curated volume? Right? It'll make a difference. So that's kind of what I've seen working with healthcare practices. what have you, like, is there anything not on here categorically that you guys would want to add to the list?
I think that there's a misunderstanding in the church about poverty being associated with holiness. So there's actually a stigma on being successful. Like if you're succeeding, you're actually being prideful, or you're caring too much about the things of this world. So there's a self-sabotage piece that comes in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good layer. That's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, if I talk about my successes, if I talk about what I've accomplished, then I'm being braggy. And being comfortable with understanding it's more about the intent.
Yeah.
It's something that I brought to my attention years ago because I do the little introductions and things I do, and people are like, but, and then they started to introduce me, and they're like, okay, what Lori didn't say is that she's interviewed Dr. Phil, and she's done this, and she's done that, and it was that lesson of like, yeah, I mean, we have to be comfortable being able to say the things that we've done, and it's a lot in the intent part.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's also just in counseling, we're not taught anything about business. So unless you actively seek it out, business oftentimes has been a dirty word in counseling. And when I'm coaching fellow private practitioners, there's that overwhelmed piece of it, but it's also that misunderstanding of what business is, and that counseling is a business, and you better have that mindset behind it, or you're going to fail.
Yeah, and they're just now starting to incorporate that into medical training. I mean, and like there's been generations of clinicians that had to learn the hard way. And a lot of industries have been like that. Like you can have, like, because I do a lot of work with the cars, I know a lot of mechanics. It's like, well, some of them are really great at what they do, but can't run the business. And they fail. It's not because they weren't great at what they do, it's just because they weren't trained on the business part. Their dad was a mechanic, so they know the car really well. But running the business really well is what they do.
And I think we've seen a lot of that in the last few years from the board, a lot of LPC associates to go out on their own and hang machine up, and they just want to go run a business and help people, and like they really had no business running their own.
Running a business, yeah.
And I think that Laura touched on this, so maybe this is restating something obvious here, but I think lack of skills, lack of ability. So it's not just we don't know what to do, most many don't know what to do.
Yes.
So the training is not there.
Yeah, for sure. And when resources was part of that was it's like I don't have it within me. I haven't been trained on this either.
We're specifically trained as well, though, in the field of counseling to be a blank slate to our clients. And so I think sometimes that inhibits us in owning our own identity within our business. You know, because we're not supposed to bring necessarily who we are.
Yeah.
And so I would say I just kind of worked with a therapist friend.
Yeah. And that, you know, it's funny that it's shared by other clinicians too, because they're thinking about not their mild patients, they're thinking about their most acute patients, right? To be able to say, well, what about this single mom that has 2 kids and one of them has this, and they're, you know, the luxury they have is they'll blame it on the insurance companies. We're just passing it down, but it is a hard conversation, especially considering what you deal with your
The
patients.
stigma here relies on word of mouth. I think I take that on the other side of it as well.
I want to make sure I respect your time and get you a little bit more to the solution part, or at least starting down the path of a solution. And so this is where I wanted to bringing together those factors and having worked with small business entrepreneurs that are believers. I feel like this is the dilemma, and I'll gut check it with you guys. You can tell me if we touched on this actually. You're trained as a clinician. These are the things you're really familiar with and can speak to with a lot of depth. You can listen, you can guide people, you know modalities, like here are the avenues of treatment that we can take. And I can get you better. I think we can get to a better place with these treatments, right? That you've been trained how to do, you've operated in it for years. What you haven't been trained to do is the business side. The problem is once you decide to hang a shingle, you became that too.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's showing you this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some of the people that are offering to do it feel greasy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's a third component that gets really confusing, is in all of that we want to honor God. So I can be a clinician and honor God. It's pretty easy. I'm helping people, right? Business owner feels more nebulous because I've seen business done a lot of different ways, and I don't know exactly what this looks like. Is this a good summary version of what you guys deal with, or are there other components or other categories that you would want to add to that?
I think that's so well put together, especially.
Therapists, they're like great business people, and then they're not so great business people, and then there's some kind of this in the middle, because it depends on where in the business you sit. Like if I cut my teeth in outside sales, and that's the world I know, I've been trained by salespeople, and then this, I'm just gonna have a bent towards optimism and selling and
Mm-hmm.
in my role, because I had to clean up that mess so many times, but I'm still having to grow the business. Salespeople look at me like you're a what do you call it? A joy killer, kind of, like high killer. But I'm like, no. But if we set the appropriate high, we can actually hit it, right? And then there's people who are heavy. All they do is deal with the problems, and so they have a little more pessimistic view of the business. Well, and then focus so much on the risks that you can't say anything about your business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they kind of run the spectrum on who you encounter. I'd encourage you. I mean, it's a great step that you've looked to engage with somebody like that. I would just say, just like if you don't find a therapist you like, you just look for another therapist. Just look for another business therapist.
Yes.
And you'll land on one that will take the time to listen and understand it, and then be like, okay, here are the parameters I have to work with. Let's make lemonade. You know? Well, I love the feedback here. One thing I wanted to start with was saying you'll pay for marketing, of course. You'll pay somebody, or you'll pay mechanisms, platforms and so on, but you also pay for not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody selling, or somebody positioning you in a way that captures the audience that you want to capture. And that's really the difference between selling and marketing. Is marketing starts the process by identifying who am I as a business, who am I as a clinician, who am I after, like they call it a target audience, right? Who am I really after? Who's my ideal client? Now, seller, I need you to go out and talk to those people and give them this message, right? And what's funny is we've been going through the book of Luke in discipleship class. And this is kind of towards the middle of Luke, but it talks about how Jesus, with his disciples, he had been teaching them up to a certain point, and then he says, all right, you guys know what I'm about. Now you guys go try it.
Yeah.
You guys go try the miracles.
Mm-hmm.
You guys go try the increase. You guys go try X, Y, and Z. And they went and they tried and they came back. And then they had a time, we're supposed to have time and rest with Jesus, but then they ran into another thing that they needed to take care of. And then a little bit later, a chapter later, it talks about how Jesus sent 72, not just 12. I was like, I had never really caught that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he grew his marketing team in a way. He had been trained, they've been around him, they know what he's about. He's like, those are his people. He's like, oh no, now you guys.
That's good.
Well, that's kind of the relationship between marketing and sales. Usually the executive of the business is much more tied into marketing, because the salespeople they want to enable salespeople to go out and do their thing. But the marketing is where it starts, because we're identifying who are we, what do we do? And if you don't have that exercise, or if you don't go through that exercise, you miss out on a lot. And so I'm just giving you some stats around the overall spend, but then also for behavioral health specifically, that was a really interesting stat that only 4% of them believe it's easy to reach their audience. And then overall in healthcare, 33% of marketers, only a third, feel like they are reaching their market effectively. So I'm saying that to say you're not alone. Like even some of the pros in healthcare have a hard time deciphering. And I believe a lot of this has to do with within healthcare, just like it is within other small businesses especially, is we're in a place where we are trying to build, and so we want to capture it all. We don't want to exclude an opportunity for something, because what if that one thing turns into a business line of its own? What if this is the exact line I want, or X, Y, and Z? So we try to market to everybody, and then we market to nobody, right? So below here, just some stats that I wanted you guys to know about as it relates to like trending with what's happening, where are people going to get information? They're now seeking information. It's not just hanging a shingle and producing a website. And have you heard of SEO? Search engine optimization. Okay, cool. So you guys know about all that. So there's one thing I wanted to just pair together here. One is there's the online, the classic marketing. There's the part of you knowing who you are, getting mechanisms to get the message out. And then one of those mechanisms is your referral networks. So because I deal with growing existing business, if I'm dealing with a practice, I'm like, your existing business is your referral network. They're already sending you business. How do you deepen the relationship with your referral networks that are not individuals, but their business grows when your business grows and vice versa? And you guys are building a little bit of that here, right? You have complementary specialties and you get to refer to each other and you grow and you deepen relationship. Well, how do we scale that up?
Yeah.
You know, what do you have in your hand is kind of what we come back to. Okay, so what I'm proposing is what we've done for other healthcare practices is to just reframe what marketing looks like. So instead of it being a sales tool and purely a sales tool, if you treat it like almost like a clinical pre-intake, then the goal of marketing becomes a lot more in line with how we're used to practicing, right? Because now we're not promising the moon, we're not trying to get to anybody and everybody, and the pure motive doesn't feel like more sales. What it feels like is, well, up front, I want to set the expectation on my website or in my content or in my podcast. I want people to get a sense of what it feels like to be with me as a clinician or as a therapist or as a chiropractor or as whatever I am. And it will tend to attract the right kind of people if I'm intentional about that. And I put advanced down there because what you're doing here is the advanced move. Is if I'm not the right person for you, I can send you to somebody I trust who I think is the right person for you. Because a lot of the time we leave it at, I'm not the right person for you.
Best wishes.
Implied good luck. Yeah, good luck finding somebody. Better if we can be like, I'm not the right guy, but I know somebody who could be really good. And we do this in the car world too. I'll be like, if somebody has a Toyota, I have a guy. If somebody has a BMW, I'm like, Toyota guy isn't right for you, but I know a BMW guy. And instantly, not only is their credibility increased, but mine is too. Because I'm taking time to listen to you and assess and be like, I'm just not gonna blanket sell you somebody. I'm gonna take a minute, I understand what you mean. All right, does that help? Okay, so here's some examples. You guys have probably been through this already, but how much time do we have?
Probably 15 more minutes officially.
Okay, all right, so I'm gonna try to get it done in 10. So these are just some statements that I've seen on websites, clinician-related websites. And the second one was for Colton, actually, because that was from a chiropractor. But you see the difference in the statements, right? Doesn't one feel kind of salesy?
Mm-hmm.
But they consider that marketing, right? And then the one in green is basically saying, well, as a clinician, from a clinician's perspective, how can I make my marketing more reflective of my heart as a clinician?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still need to put content up there, and it needs to give them hope
Yeah, that's
that
good.
there's treatment available. But I'm going to do it within certain parameters that reflect my language and set the right expectations so that they leave my clinic happy, right? And what I found, it's not just individual patients, it's businesses, is if you take the time to set the right expectations up front, you're going to have a happy client. Like, I've had to have some really hard conversations with clients, and at the end of it, they're thankful that we ripped the Band-Aid, because we started moving towards, well, what can we do? This is not a reality. I'm sorry the sales guy told you this, but this can't happen. But here's options 1, 2, and 3 that we could take. Do any of these feel realistic? And we start working on that solution and deliver, right? Okay. So kind of rolling this up into what clinician marketing, what it should do for you. Like I said, it should tell them what it feels like to sit across from you as a clinician. Understanding who benefits the most and least from your approach. So for me, in my coaching practice, if I have somebody who has a really strong victim mentality, I'm gonna refer them to a friend. That's probably a deeper counselor.
A friend that you
or
like or
therapist.
don't like.
I'll be like, well, I'll get their insurance first. Just do we take them? So, it's important to understand that, because otherwise you're working against yourself, right? But it takes guts to do it, because up front you're filtering out potential income. But the income you get is worth it. You know, it's kind of like when you're building a team, like when Anita and I were building our marriage counseling team, we were like, I would much rather have 5 really strong couples that we're all aligned than 20 that I have to manage.
Yeah.
Just like a difference in heart and
Right.
a difference in core approach. And what we want to do. So the same applies for your patient base, and the same applies for your practice. Is most people in behavioral health, this has been our experience at Amwell, we don't have any wrong volume. Like, the demand is so much higher than the supply of clinicians in that field. The bigger problem that we've been having has been the fit. It's like they'll pay the money for a visit and they'll be like, oh, it's not what I expected. It's like, oh, well, we need to put some different information on our site and our provider profile so people can check and say, oh, this is the condition, they line up with what I think I'm doing. And then what they can realistically expect. And that comes back to that previous slide. Instead of saying this thing's gonna take care of you, it's gonna be like, no, actually it's this percentage of people that went through this experienced this kind of outcome. We're confident in it, but we're not guaranteeing it, right? So being able to communicate accurately. I just wanted to list out some mechanisms. You guys probably know most of these. The ones in green are the free ones. Okay, and that's where I would start, because that's what's in your hand, right? If you don't have the budget to go for a really strong marketing campaign and you haven't quite decided who you are and what you do and so on, one of the first places you can go to is your Google reviews. What are people saying about you? And when I look at, because I do a lot of research even before I buy a toothbrush. It's just like, I'm that personality. So when I don't look at just the stars, like if somebody has 3.5 stars, I'm like, I wonder why they have 3.5 stars. So I'll actually read through the feedback. But what I'm looking for is the vendor's response. How does the vendor respond to dissatisfied or critical customers? And how they respond evokes something like, I want to do business with that person, or I don't. There's certain responses I'm like, ooh. And then there are other responses that I'm like, oh wow, this person, they know how to deal with that conflict well. I would want to support that person. So that's in your hand. You can do that today. You can go and look up your business on Google, and if you, like from here on out, if somebody leaves you a positive or negative review, give something thoughtful back to them,
Yeah.
right? Referral networks, that's something you have in your hand. These are relationships that trust you, that are willing to send business to you. The reason I went for an interview for a sales job, and they gave me that classic, hey, sell me this pen. And so I went through my thing, and he was like, you're one of the best salespeople I know, except you never asked for the money for the pen. Like you sold me on the need, you told me in what situations it's great, you took time to listen to me, this, that, but you never asked for the business. And I'm like, that's not bad sales. So ask for the business. If you have trusted relationships, I know for the people that I have as entrepreneur friends, they're the first people I think about when there's a need. Like when somebody comes to me with something, because I trust them. I want to give them the business.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes there's just so many things going on, it's not top of mind until the moment it's top of mind. So we have a friend of ours who's a real estate agent, and he sends us these letters every month, right? He's like, hey, don't forget this, and da-da-da. And he'll give like helpful tips, like if winter's coming up, hey, this is how you wrap your faucets, and this, that, and whatever. The summertime does X, Y, and Z. And then at the end of it, he's just like, I'm never too busy for your referrals. That's just what a little tagline he puts in there. Well, I mean, who am I going to think about the next time somebody's looking at the house? Because he's just, how cheap it is, 70 cents to send a letter. And so, he's the guy I think about, right? So there are things in your hand that you can do that are low cost or free. Social posts, if you can do social posts thoughtfully under the name of your business, and I wouldn't do this until you really understand who you are. But once you do start doing that, that's free. Get into user groups, connect. And these traditional marketing methods are not bad. They're just traditional. Like, it's not bad to be connected to your chamber of commerce. It's not bad for you to go word of mouth. It's not bad for you to, have something like we have the Allen Imaged and Plano Profile and this, that, like these local publications. People actually look through them. So it's worth exploring, right? Okay, so this is kind of the wrap up slide. Just make peace. As a business owner and entrepreneur, it is the lifeblood of your business. Not necessarily the work that you do tactically with a patient, but it is the lifeblood of your business to market. You gotta do it. Maybe we just do it more intelligently, and maybe we do it in a way that aligns with your values, and in a way that amplifies what you do instead of overselling. And then work what you have in your hand first. Understand who you are, work with what you have in your hand, and then worry about how am I going to expand this out to new channels, new areas, new forums, and all of that. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to me. I hope it was helpful.
Very
And I'm
good.
open to talk about, how with whatever time we have left, I'm open for questions and discussion, whatever you guys feel like.